Yes.
Ms. Duryea.
Yes.
Ms. Vasaro.
Yes.
Mr. Mangan.
Yes.
Ms. Williams, yes. The item number 11 is removed from the agenda. Okay. We now have amended the agenda with the removal of item number 11 being removed. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Vasaro. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, none heard. The agenda is, amended agenda is adopted. We'll now move into public comments on agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters listed on the agenda. It's limited to 3 minutes and 1 comment time per person, please. We'll start with anyone who's in person, and we'll ask you just to come to the podium, state your name and municipality and the agenda items you'd like to speak on. I'm not sure if our microphone is on, so it should have a green light if it's on.
There you go.
Okay, anybody who would like to speak first? Just state your name and municipality, please.
Linda Joseph, Wilkes-Barre. I would like to speak to number 8 on the agenda, the write-in votes with the unshaded circles. As I sat for my first time through the adjudication process for 8 days, I listened to the conflicting state rules on counting or not counting write-in votes with unshaded circles. I found in this green book that was put out by the Election Bureau a section that stated they should be counted even without a check mark or an X next to the name written in. Attorney Raddick also found that same section of Pennsylvania election code when searching online. So the board said they would accept the ballots with those type of unshaded circles. Then at the time, Ms. Gilbert found another section that from the conversation that was between Attorney Raddick and the board, that this particular section revealed something for it to be mentioned that is where the law did not catch up with technology, perhaps about the software system being used. So then the board decided not to count the unshaded circle as votes. Obviously, there are conflicting sections of the PA election code regarding this issue, and Attorney Raddick stated many times in different scenarios that the board does have discretion in making some of these decisions. I completely understand you're wanting to enforce the law and protect yourselves from lawsuits, but in this case, the law seems to be inconsistent, and that is on the responsibility of the state. I feel, as obviously 3 Luzerne County judges agreed in both cases brought before them, if a name is written in, the intent is to vote for that person. Even if returning to using voting machines, this issue for the write-ins on mail-in ballots will still exist. My thoughts are that they should be counted if only the name is written. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Go ahead.
First of all, I want to talk about item number 1 was the integrity grant.
And your
Yeah, and
name
pardon me?
and-
Oh, I'm sorry, Walter Griffith,
Okay,
Trucksville, Luzerne County Controller.
okay, and go ahead and state the.
Okay.
agenda again.
Item number 1 is the election integrity grant. We finished the grant on June 30th. The election board has taken, or the board bureau has taken great tasks in making sure everything was tied together like it's supposed to submit to the state. As a post-audit review, the controller's office looked at, I think what we need to do, and I think we tried to do this on the grant originally, is to get us a budget from the bureau that says what they're going to spend the grant money on, so the board knows what monies they're going to spend and where, as just an oversight, not for approval, but just so the board is aware of what they're going to use the grant for. I think that would help a lot on your, not only for the bureau, but also for the board. So you have a heads up on what's happening with the grant all the way through. And then you could question the things that are purchased or not purchased. Moving forward, I think that's one of the things in the post-audit review. It would be very helpful as we move forward, hopefully next year when we get the next grant. The e-poll book RFPs, I think that's something we probably should be able to get out of the grant, but I still need somebody from the bureau to take a look at that, and they're going to do that. if they could get the money for that through the grant, we might be able to buy those poll books through the integrity grant. I would think a poll book would be very important to election integrity. And so I would strongly urge that if we need to get those poll books, we do it out of the grant if possible. Campaign finance reports number 3. I publicly want to thank the manager as well as the deputy, the new deputy, and the director for their hard work in getting that up on the website. That is a very, very heavy lift for those folks that don't know what was involved. It was very involved, and we did it in less than a month. Yeah, we had some problems. We had some glitches along the way, but for the most part, it's online. People can see what's out there, and it's a work in progress. The staff is working towards the goal to make sure that it doesn't have any bumps in the road, but we got it started. So I want to thank the staff from the Bureau, working with the Controller's Office and the manager to make that happen. And yeah, we're going to have glitches at the front end, but as we move forward, hopefully that'll all go away. It'll be a seamless process and it'll happen. I know you do have questions about the annual reports and things. Everything that we have so far that was submitted to us has been posted online. But again, the Bureau is still looking for other documents that we may need to post yet. But we had to start somewhere, and we figured we'd start at the second Friday and work our way forward from there. And if we have to backfill for annual reports, we'll certainly do that at the direction of whatever the board needs. And the last item that I just want to touch really quick is on item 11. I know you took it off the agenda, and I commend the board for doing that. I think that's a wise step. The last thing we need to do is spend more money on litigation in the county on something just because we don't know for sure. And I really think that is a structural change. So thank you for all your work as a board. And mostly I thank Emily as the deputy and Romilda as the county manager for helping getting that campaign finance up. Very, very important. And I thank them for their help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Controller Griffith, I'm sorry. I would like to extend my personal thanks to your entire office with working with the Bureau and getting that, all of these things organized and going through everything, because I don't know if anybody thanked you yet, but I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you tremendously, and of course Emily and the rest of the Bureau as well, and Aaron, for working diligently on getting all of these manager control, Procamo, as everybody really working together to get this out. It's amazing the work you've done so far.
Well,
So-
and I've said this before from the podium for council as well as to this group as well. The spirit of teamwork goes a long way, and I see that daily. And if we continue with that spirit, there's no stopping how great this county can be in the next couple of years even. It's going to take time. It took a long time to get where we're at. It's going to take a long time to get out of there. But we start somewhere and the teamwork works together, we can go big places. So thank you for your accolades. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room would like to speak? Oh, okay.
Romilda Crocamo, West Hazleton Borough, Luzerne County Manager. Good evening, board members. I'm going to comment on various items here. I don't know how long I can stay up for the meeting. I'll stay as long as I can. I have another commitment. I'll speak to number 3 and thank Walter Griffith, the controller. Absolutely, we worked as a team for the campaign finance reports. This is something that the board, since I've been involved in the county, has wanted. And we finally assembled a team together with Aaron and Emily and Jennifer Pecora, working to get this done. And we are creating a process and procedure that will be followed. It will be made public. And again, I want to thank all of them for all of their work. I also want to speak to the election integrity grant, number 1. I agree with the controller. We are going to identify the projects. Hopefully we'll get a substantial grant award. We will make that public, not only to the board or to council, but also more importantly to the residents who we all have an obligation to. And in that vein, Michelle Sparridge, who is our grant writer and our grant administrator, will be taking over administration of that grant. I cannot tell you why that didn't happen. I wasn't here, but we're starting over. And at the beginning, Michelle is seasoned. She deals with DCED on a daily basis, and she's already started working on the application. And we will inform the Bureau and Council as that proceeds. I also want to follow up on the email that I sent, and I believe it speaks to number 10, 12 to 15, and that deals with the standard operating procedures of the Bureau and elections. This has been something that has been also requested, not only by council, but also in the board. And we have reached out to an attorney, Tim Gates, who was with the Department of State for about 8 years, maybe longer, as chief counsel for the Pennsylvania Department of State. He has a military background. His name came up when I had discussions with the district attorney, Sam Sangodolce, when we reviewed his report. We all know we need standard operating procedures, and he identified Attorney Gates. And I realized that I worked with him last year on the Judicial Watch case when the firm I worked for represented the county in that case. And Attorney Gates was the lead negotiator when we were in front of the federal magistrate. He's formidable. I've spoken to him. He is thoughtful. He is enthusiastic. He'll be coming, meeting with the staff, particularly Emily and Aaron, see how far we've come along in procedures, and we will have a thorough standard operating procedures for the Election Bureau. And as we go forward, whether it's with the standard operating procedures or anything else that has to do with elections, we will have metrics. And those metrics will be made public. And we will report on how we are progressing with those metrics. So in August, we're going to make announcements about things we're already doing for November. You may even get some announcements in July because we're going to start. Council member Urban has connected me with the director of Wyoming County. I reached out to her. They have a very succinct process and procedure. So every step that we take, we are going to report, because everybody in this room, especially the board, knows how difficult it is to run an election. There are so many moving parts, and there are moving parts within the moving parts. But we are going to get it right. So if anybody has any questions, please, if I'm not here, please email me or call me. And then the last item is number 7, the memorandum of understanding. I have a job to do, and I'm going to do it. I don't need a memorandum of understanding to make me give the board information or give council information. As long as something is not confidential, this administration is going to be transparent. So I will report to the board. I will report to council. I've been working with the controller's office. And I'm not hiding anything. I'm going to work with the board. And the Bureau is going to work with the board. Because that's how it's going to be. That's how we're going to run the most successful election in the history of Luzerne County. So I'm going to politely decline signing any kind of memorandum of understanding, because I'm standing at this podium and I'm giving you my word. And my word is stronger than anything that can be written down on a piece of paper. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very, very much.
I do want to say something though, really to thank Ms. Cook, because I know she has worked diligently on trying to get processes written down. And I know she did a lot of work. I saw the manual. It was pretty big. It's been pretty thorough. So I do want to thank her for that.
She's gonna hand it off. She's gonna be working very closely.
Yeah, she's got enough to do now that.
anybody else in the room who'd like to speak? Go ahead, sir. Just state your name and your municipality, please.
Alan Henninger, Dallas Township, Judge of Elections as well. Got a couple issues and it already came up about the handy little green book. I'm going to be speaking relative to agenda items 8, 9, and 10 mostly. And actually 8, 9, and 10 are in the green book. Okay, and this is issued to all judges in the black bag that they're given at each election. However, I'm not sure that too many judges actually take the time to read it because they're so busy doing other things that whole day. What my suggestion to start with, okay, would be if these documents, this book was available at the judges training, just sitting there as a pile for any of the judges to take and peruse prior to an election, which is what is recommended in the book itself. And you can't get this book any other way before day of election because it's sealed into the judge's bag. So I think if we can remove it from there, that's a good step. It does deal with the shaded colored dots for write-ins. And I was going to bring it up and you caught it. And I'm just there shaking my head. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and as I was reading the news reports, I was saying it's in that green digest. You know, the instructions are there, and it says it's from the actual election law. So I indeed believe that if somebody takes the time, like was suggested, to actually write a name in there, they meant to actually vote on it. I think the issue this time came because we had paper ballots and an automated system counting them that only records things if you shade it in the dot. And if you didn't shade in the dot, it didn't record it. So now it gave you more work to do. So I think if we went back to the ballot marking device, that issue doesn't pop up at all, except for the write-ins coming from the mail-in ballots, as was already mentioned. But the ballot marking device, you can't put a write-in without marking it as something that scanner's going to actually record. And you have to type it in, so nobody's going to have a problem reading it. So if we could go back to the automated system totally, it would help as far as this judge is concerned, the daily work of that day. And I think the accuracy would be there too. And I believe that the expense would be lower in that we don't have to print ballots and then wonder how many to print. And then did we make an error on the printing and have to reprint, or do we have to send little posters out to tell people we forgot to print something? I mean, all that was because we decided to do paper ballots, which was arduous this time as somebody that actually manned the polls that day. So
Thank you, Mr. Henninger. Your time is up, but it sounds like you have a lot of great information for us. And if you have more, I hope you would save it for the second public comment.
I could see that I've gone past the time and I apologize for that. But indeed, I will mention, and I'll save it for later, but the qualifications and recruitment section for
Okay.
poll workers, I've got something to say.
Okay, we
Okay,
have another public comment, so.
thank you.
please Hold that thought.
And then really quick, I just wanted to go over with, is that a possibility to include that green booklet in training?
Are we even gonna use that green book?
Why don't we save that for
Okay.
the conversation?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, I see somebody at the podium. Go ahead and state your name.
Robin Koshan, Dallas Township. And this is actually on several agenda items. It's all but number 3 and 7. There's no denying that Luzerne County has not had successful elections for years, but we're very hopeful to see this new spirit of teamwork and hope that it will continue. The county received over $1 million in the election integrity grant that could be used to clean up voter rolls. As taxpayers, grant money is our money, and we are the employer and the voters, and we want to know how much was actually spent on voter roll cleanup, where and how. We seriously question the decision-making and fiduciary responsibilities of Bureau management when, for example, they even considered spending $25,000 on pens or $15,000 to mail letters because ballots were printed incorrectly without candidates' towns. Luzerne County paid over $371,000 to Runbeck Election Services. According to Influence Watch, Runbeck Election Services produces and distributes ballot papers and has been controversial for ballot box stuffing, breaking chain of custody for cast ballots between collection and counting sites at their facility, and printing errors. It's noteworthy that states with questionable election integrity, such as Arizona, Colorado, and Pennsylvania, all use Runbeck. So exactly what services did Runbeck provide to Luzerne County for $371,000? Was it the incorrectly printed ballots? Was proofreading handed off to them? Did anyone bother to check Runbeck's integrity before contracting with them? Has their contract been renewed? The county manager may have addressed some of these other concerns, but after waiting 7 months for the DA's report on the grossly mishandled November 2022 midterms, only to be volleyed back to the board, bureau, council, and county manager, where responsibility and resolution always belonged, the DA said he would discuss plans with the administration to bolster the workforce, implement training, and make additional resources available to the bureau. So our questions are, what training has been implemented? What additional resources are available to the bureau? How will the workforce be bolstered? The next election is only 4 months away. Using government employees and candidates on the ballot as poll workers seems to be a conflict of interest that would increase voter distrust and solidify the county's tainted reputation of corruption. If standards of procedure are being written, how will you ensure the employee understands them and will carry them out? Written procedures are meaningless if they are not enforced or the persons aren't held accountable, as we witnessed with the botched elections when those persons were not fired or reprimanded and merit increases were actually proposed. Lastly, we support beginning these meetings at 6 p.m. to accommodate the public who work to pay the taxes, which are paying Elections Bureau staff salaries and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in person who would like to speak?
I would like to respond, Ms. Koshan, just so you know, the 371,000 was for the mail sorter from Runbeck Solutions. So that's what you were seeing there. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, we'll move to anybody who's on the online Zoom platform. If you'd like to speak, you can press the raise hand bar button on the bar at the bottom. Go ahead, Davis Anita, just state your name and your municipality, please.
Yes, Anita Davis. I am a lifelong resident of Luzerne County. I'm in Plains, which I guess is Ward 6. I'm concerned about the questionnaire you want to add to the election ballot coming up this fall. And due to the fact that it was even voted through with the majority of one party on the county board, that I think that question, if it's not phrased right, could be utilized in a biased manner. And I want to have the question phrased in a way that it's plainly stated that they want the 5 members of the election board to be elected by the city council, which at this point is one party and the majority. I don't think this is fair, and I don't think this even should pass vote, and I'm concerned. I was at the meeting when they wanted to throw out the election due to the paper paper shortage in certain places. And I noted certain citizens of different sections of Luzerne County were making some accusations that were like off the wall, and if you don't mind me saying, very crazy. So I'm concerned that our elections in Luzerne County remain unbiased and free, and people that are volunteering to work for the elections are doing this out of their own goodwill and not a concern for the elections in Luzerne County. I don't think it's right that they get threatened or accused or scared to continue with their duties on any kind of election type. Okay? I want the question to be
Oh, go ahead.
unbiased. I just want the question to be framed in an unbiased manner where the voters truly know what they're answering on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else on the online Zoom platform? If so, just press the raise hand button on the bar at the bottom. I don't see any. Oh, wait, Karen, go ahead. State your name and your municipality.
My name is Karen Pienka and I'm in Ward 8, Wilkes-Barre City. And I'd like to say about the question 11 that was voted off the table tonight. When will that be put back on the table, and is it going to be rewritten? Are you going to wait until you hear from a lawyer, or how are you going to go about answering that question? Writing that question, rather. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we would have to put whatever else we do on an agenda. We at this point, it's not on the agenda. We've removed it. So if there is any other addressing of that, it would have to go onto an agenda. And you would see it because we have to post the agenda publicly at least 24 hours before a meeting.
Okay, so that would be on for the next meeting. You have to, you're going to find
Possibly.
legal advice for this?
Possibly.
Okay.
That is a possibility.
Okay, because I strongly oppose the question being put on the ballot to begin with. I don't think that's fair. I think the 4 election board members should be allowed to pick their 5th member, period. End of discussion. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I thought I saw another hand raised. Maybe I didn't. Okay, if there's anyone on a phone line who would like to speak, you may unmute yourself, and I believe it's *6 to unmute, and I think you have to unmute yourself. We can't unmute you, and just go ahead and speak. Doesn't appear that anybody else is going to speak. I have some emails that we received, the board members received, that were requested to be read into the record.
So before you do
Go
that,
ahead.
I'm not saying don't read it. I'm just asking that since those particular emails pertain to an item that was removed from the agenda, should we wait until those items are, until the agenda contains the actual
I don't know that that's the case because some people have commented on it even though it was removed. I could defer to
Okay,
Attorney
well, I'm just-
Raddick
I'm
on
just-
that. We had requests for several emails to be read. Some of them are related to the item on the agenda that's been removed. And Mr. Mangan is asking, do we still read them?
I would put those within the meeting that you are going to actually talk about the agenda item, because otherwise it's really, I mean, you're not discussing it tonight, so you're not gonna remember what that person said from now till then.
Okay, let me just make sure they're not also saying anything else. Okay, they're all related. All the ones I have here are related to item number 11, which was removed from the agenda. So the recommendation of Attorney Raddick is to hold them. And I'll hold on to them. And if it becomes an agenda item again, just read them then. Okay, and I'll just set them
Yes,
aside.
yes, that's what when you have it on the agenda, then you can read those because they're related to that agenda, to that particular agenda.
Okay, all right. With that, looks like we're going to move into public comment is over, and we'll move to the approval of the meeting minutes. We have several different meeting minutes on the agenda. I'll start with the first one in the order from farthest back to most recent, and that was May 3rd, 2023, regular meeting, which were pages 4 through 9 in our agenda posted online. Is there a motion to approve the I'm going to do these separately, May 3rd, 2023 meeting minutes?
I make the motion.
Okay, Mr.
I'll
Mangan
second.
makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Fusaro. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Opposition? None heard. The May 3rd, 2023 regular meeting minutes have been approved. The next one it was and they were all included in the same write-up. The May 16th, 2023 election day notes and the May 19th through this meeting that went until June 5th, but it was all one meeting, which was the special meeting for the adjudication of the May 2023 primary election. These were pages 10 through 28, posted online, also in our under our agenda. And I am going to make a motion for an amendment to the May 19th minutes parts, not the May 16th election day notes. Under the no date part where it has 97 no date, and I'll give you this if you want me to stick it out. The roll call vote has 4 yes and 4 no.
Oh, okay.
And the motion passed. And it should have read, because you could see how everyone voted, about 4 yes and 1 no. So I'm just making the motion to amend the those meeting minutes in that regard.
I second.
Seconded by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Opposition? Okay, the amended meeting minutes for the May 16th and the May 19th through June 5th have been approved. And the last one was our last meeting was the June 5th, 2023 special meeting for the certification of the May 16th, 2023 primary elections. They were posted under our meeting minutes online, pages 29 through 30. I also am going to make a motion to amend these minutes under, okay, here we go. Let me find it. It's titled, it appears to be titled incorrectly. It has special meeting at the top for adjudication of the May 2023 primary election. It should say special meeting for certification of the May primary election. It's dated June 9th also instead of June 5th. That's the June 9th instead of June 5th. And then it just has a 1 o'clock typo start time. I think it has 1 in the colon and no zeros, but you get the point. And it has at the end next meeting, but it doesn't have anything after it. But I mean, that's a very minor point. We don't often put next meeting and get that information. But those were my amendments to the June 5th special meeting for the certification of the May 16th primary election. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Opposition? None heard. And the amended June 5th, 2023 special meeting for certification of the May primary election have been approved. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll move into the items on the agenda. The first one is the 2022 election integrity grant. It was, it's pages 31 through 33 under the agenda posted online. It's on the agenda for information and discussion. One of the things I noted on the spreadsheet of the breakdown for the election integrity grant information that we received, and everyone can see on the spreadsheet, was the warehouse locks were $1,209.30. At our last meeting, regular meeting on May 3rd, Ms. Harvey shared that $104,600 was going to be used on warehouse security. My impression of that was, in my understanding from what was shared, was there would be card readers, like badge access installed at the warehouse. And I think I've already received the information that that is still going to be done.
Right, so due to the time constraints with spending the money for the grant, we were unable to complete that large overhaul prior to the closeout date of June 30th this year. So that will roll into, we'll take that project on when we receive the funds for the grant in September.
And then as for security purposes, it's well secure.
Yes, it is.
Without funds.
Oh, yes.
And anybody who has the keys is, the county is aware of who all has keys.
Right, so we did, obviously, we had some recent changes in leadership. And so with changes in leadership within the Bureau, due to the sensitivity of, keeping the voting machines safe, we do change the locks whenever we have any turnover in leadership.
And is it just the election bureau that has keys to that warehouse?
The leadership and the sheriff's department. No.
Well, I didn't hear that. What was that?
He asked if facilities has access. No.
Buildings and
It's
grounds?
limited. No. It's limited to the sheriff's department and bureau leadership.
You will be switching over to badge access though?
Yep, we're going to add additional.
And that seems so much easier too, because you can just shut it off if somebody's no longer working with us, it seems a lot easier.
When we have a better description of everything that we're going to do at the warehouse, we'll provide that to the board as well. But that'll be further along in the next couple months.
My only other question is, as for the grant, I know this has come up and, the board has had to come in and sign for some grants and others not. Does this election integrity grant require board member signatures?
I don't believe so, but that wouldn't be a question that I would have the answers to. We'll provide that. We'll talk with Michelle Sparich and the Office of Law and get back to you.
With the EIG, do we, the deadline's the August 15th?
Yeah, we have
it's
the
August
calendar.
1st to the 15th that you can apply, right? Okay, I just trying to write it down here.
That's the application process?
That's the application.
That application
For
process.
the
is
next year's.
For the
For this
following
coming
year.
September,
Yeah.
to
for
receive the
this
funds, the
September.
application process would happen from August 1st to the 15th.
Any other board members have any other questions or any bureau leadership and have anything else they want to input on that first agenda item? Okay, we'll move to number 2, the electronic poll book RFPs. This is on for information and status. And it was running in the as a legal notice. And I believe the deadline for it's over.
No, so the deadline for the public RFP, it closes on July 17th. We did extend it. And then we'll provide some updated information at that point. And then if any board members, just like with the last round of the whole book RFPs, if any board members would like to go over it, you can request an appointment with Director Harvey after it's been closed. So you can go through and ask any questions then as well.
Okay, are we making the RFPs public?
I didn't hear that.
Are we making the RFPs public?
They are public.
They
I
are,
believe
I
so,
thought
yeah.
so, but I wasn't.
They're on the webpage.
Okay, cool, thank you. That was just, wasn't sure if we did that or not.
Okay, all right. I know in the past, the process for the purchase of the Agilis was that, well, it wasn't that, it was something after that. I think the Agilis was the start of, our request that for large purchases, voting equipment, if going forward, I think it's in the last MOU, that it would be presented to the board before it goes before council. And the board, although the board can't vote on it, we can vote and in support or not in support of what the Bureau wants to present to the council and give input after being presented by the Bureau of, what their preference is and what they're bringing to the council. And, my position on it was, it just creates like teamwork, like we talked about, like everybody gives a little input, the board, the Bureau, before it gets to the council, so that they have an understanding of not only how the Bureau feels about something, but the board as well. And, to them, if they see, well, they're not in agreement with each other, or they are, that might give them the opportunity to ask questions on why that would be, and to help them and choose in making their decision as well. So just putting that out there, that hoping that process would be continued.
Right, that, I believe that is the standard practice now.
Okay.
Since that purchase with the Agilis, that has been what we've been doing moving forward. That's why we opened up when you guys requested about the poll books the last time, even though we didn't move forward with that. At that point, we are working towards being more open and inclusive and making sure that the board is involved as much as you need to be, of course.
Okay.
Well, and to that point, it's kind of funny is while looking at something else today, Title 53 actually came up in another document, and it said the exact same thing, that when there are conflicts between the charter and state law trumps charter. And then when there's conflicts between the administrative code and state law trumps that always in elections. And, obviously this is a discussion, an ongoing discussion as to whose role it is to approve high purchases. I feel very strongly that Title 25 says it's the board's decision to approve it and submit it to the council. Prior to going to council, though, it's approved by the board. And it will be something that will be discussed at the state level in future talks. But, I still feel, and then I know I'm in conflict with a lot of people on the way I feel. And, but, just like taxes, just like penalties, it's very spelled out very clearly in Title 53, 2962, I believe, that that state law trumps local law on very few things, but elections and the conduct thereof is on that list. So, I will continue to make my point on that. And that's all I have to say on that matter.
Any other board members or Bureau leadership have any more input on number 2 poll book RFPs? Okay, we'll move on to number 3, which is the 2023 campaign finance reports, 2022 annual, second Friday pre-primary and 30-day post-primary. It was on the agenda for information and status. And I think we heard a lot about that already. I think we heard pretty much
everything,
very
right?
much in the public, during the public comment time. Is there, open it up to any board members or bureau leadership to, if there's any other input.
I think just wanted to really quick, the amount of work that went into this is unbelievable. And I know that it is, it has gotten a little messy. One thing I thought that, I'd like to discuss in this, and if it's okay, possibly put on the agenda to discuss further is when these, anything that has to do with the campaign finance or any monies are collected, that they go directly to the, instead of going to the election bureau office. I think that's something that maybe Ramilda can do this, but I think they should go to the, what is it, the finance officer, that they pay this on the second floor instead of the treasurer's office. Thank you.
They have to go to the
Thank you.
treasurer's office. Yeah.
Yeah, and currently, I believe the office, the bureau office has been collecting money. So I think that they need to go to the bureau or the treasurer's office in the future to pay that, and then bring the receipt down to the bureau office. That way we're not having any type of security issues or anything like that in the future for the, or money missing or anything like that. If we keep it in somebody's drawer in an office or something like that, I don't know how it's being
kept in a
secured.
safe, so.
All right, well, it's
Yeah.
kept in a safe, but still, it's one of those things, checks and balances, where we do the checks and balances for the ballots, we do the checks and balances and chain of custody for everything else. I mean, money's just as important. I don't think thousands of dollars should be sitting in a safe in the bureau office. I think that should be, that money is better used in the account.
If it's cash, they do have to go to the treasurer's office. But if it's anything else, then they usually go to the bureau first, but they do have to then bring it to the treasurer.
Okay, I think that just, to be safe, somebody writes a check. I know I don't want it sitting in a safe for a period of time. I want my check cashed, taken out of my account right away. That's just me, but I think for, I don't know if that's something we need to add to the agenda in the future, but it's something that I think we should pay attention to.
Would that be part of the standard operating procedure that they're working on?
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes, and
hope so.
we will look into that. I really appreciate your comments, and I agree, we have to be very careful when we're dealing with monies. We would have to prepare the treasurer's office at this point to make the transition, and that will be part of potential.
Thank you.
I just had one thing to say. I know it has been in process and progress for quite some time, as was commented on during the public comment about getting the campaign finance policy procedures in order. Now that there is policy and procedure being implemented, I think it's very important for it to be accurate and consistent and across the board for everyone, which I'm sure it's going to be. I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying, my thoughts on it. But it is supposed to be part of the determination of if somebody wins an office on the ballot in November, these reports are looked at to see if they were filed. And so to receive their certification, correct, for an office, there are certain things that they have to have filed, and the Bureau has to have. Now, in the past, maybe that didn't go, wasn't what, there was a lot of turnover, there were a lot of years, a lot of change up, and some things were, those who were coming in were just trying to really get through an election at times, and I understand that. But now that we're working towards this, that those who are running for office realize that this is why this is being done, because it's a requirement by law that these have to be in to certify a person for that office on the ballot. Anything you want to add to that,
So
Emily?
if I may, I was going to speak to some of the ways that we're going to be working throughout the summer. Obviously, as Controller Griffith mentioned earlier, and thank you to your office. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to keep saying it. Thank you for everything that you guys did, because it really was an indescribable amount of work to even just get this project started. So one of the ways that we're obviously working on refining this process, in addition to organizing the information and posting it publicly, we're going to be working through the summer to kind of overhaul what we had already, including, those 2022 annual reports that were not part of the audit, but are still relevant to what the board needs. Some of the other ways we're working on refining the process is updating and maintaining an internal database where we'll have all of a candidate's documentation just at the push of a button. You can search for their name. What a member of the Bureau leadership can look for the candidate's name, their committees, and have all of the documents that they've submitted to us at your fingertips, basically. We're also looking at streamlining the filing process. There are a couple of options that we have, so I'm not going to get into the weeds with that until we have an actual process in place. But we are looking into some options for streamlining that filing process for the candidates and committees as well. And then the biggest thing we're looking to do is trainings. We're looking at trainings not only for Bureau staff and leadership. We're looking at providing trainings or what options we have to train our candidates and their committees to inform them of, this is why this and this and this need to be filed with our office. This is what you need to file. Here's if this, then that, things like that, to sort of explain, yes, things haven't always been consistent. They haven't always been done the way they need to, but this is why you need to do this, this, and this. And if you're doing this, this is what you need to do, and lay it out plainly for a brand new candidate walking in off the street for their first election ever. So that we're all on the same page. There's consistency for every committee, candidate, person moving forward.
Have we ever looked at reaching out to party chairs? I mean, the party chairs are heavily involved in the candidates, and having the party chairs assist the Bureau to assist the candidates to educate them as well. I see a lot of opportunity to work with the chairs that I don't think we're really taking advantage of, that we could be reaching out to them to say, look, and help us facilitate what needs to be done and help streamline the process, whether it's, that's just a suggestion on my part.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was not something I had considered yet, so thank you for suggesting that.
Thank you, Emily. Anything else from anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the election board clerk designation. And that's for information. I know that Ms. Cora, the head of administrative services, is on the Zoom. And
I believe she's on the phone.
She's on the phone. Yeah, you're right. She's on the phone. I don't know if she knows it's *6. Yep, I think she knows, because she just unmuted.
Okay.
If she would like to address this question. The election board clerk designation. Not sure if you can hear me, Ms. Cora.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Check your phone for mute.
Unmute is *6.
Yeah,
but
she
it's
might
unmuted.
have, she might have her phone muted as well. I think her own phone muted.
Oh,
maybe.
yes, Alyssa, you are correct.
Yes. Got it.
Hi there, we're
extra
on.
level of security while I'm at a baseball game. I don't want anyone to hear the background just in the event.
I do
that
it all
we're
the
muted. Sorry
time.
about
That's
that.
how I do.
Right. Sorry about that.
No
So,
problem.
yeah, I've given this some thought in the interim as we are, amongst changes in leadership. We have some open positions. Emily is stepped up as acting, and we have another position to fill. We have the deputy position to fill, which is now leaving the operations vacant while Emily's acting. So in the interim, I would like to name Ms. Harvey as my designee until we have everyone in place as to where they're going to be when those positions are filled. So if you would like to share your thoughts on that.
I'm
That's fine.
fine with it. The only request I have for anybody who would be designated as a clerk is to be able to, if I'm sending, a legal notice to, ask to get it into the paper, or, most of what I would do would be through email because we're not in the bureau office. So my only request would be to get responses in a timely manner. That's all.
Absolutely. And that's,
No matter who is, and so that we get things done if there's a deadline for something, an agenda getting up, but usually I go straight to IT now for that. But for a legal notice to go out, sometimes they have to be out in a certain period of time, for whatever, but that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a reasonable request. And you're also welcome to CC me on any of those requests as well, so that I could follow up and stay on top of it. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And I would like to state, as with everything, Title 25 states that we are to name our own clerk to the board, but of course, the administrative code goes against that. And of course, our administrative code trumps state law, but I'm just making myself clear once again.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they would like to add to item number 4? We'll move on to item number 5. The Bureau leadership training needed for election processes. And this I put on for information and status. I have a concern when, my concern, and I have expressed this, is, well, we're at 2 bureau leadership currently, is that I think it's really important that instead of the process or policy of one person doing all these things and one person doing all these things, and maybe each of them not knowing how to do these things and these things, that they're cross-trained. All bureau leadership knows how to do all election processes in the event that maybe, especially if there are only 2 with bureau leadership, if one is sick or on vacation or something happens and they're called away, they're not available, that whoever is available has an understanding of what to do. And the main reason is because it could risk compromising or slowing down election processes. And I'm thinking mostly for the board, with adjudication. But I think it's also important for the Bureau on its own to be able to all understand the processes together. And so I put it on to see if there is still training needed for any of the Bureau leadership. And if so, if that's going to, for any of the processes, if there are some who don't know how to do something, if that's going to happen, if there are constraints to getting that done, because I know it seems like there's always an election, and even though there's a summertime, there are vacations, there are things that happen this summer that you have to do when it's not in the midst of an election, and I appreciate that. But is there time for it to do this? So I'm just throwing some things out there.
May I? Yeah. So as I think everyone on the board, within the Bureau, the administration, and the public is aware, training for the Bureau, particularly for the leadership, is a big need. It's something that we have struggled with pretty consistently, be it turnover, be it from some recent members of staff of leadership refusing training or things like that. We've identified that is an issue. And so the current leadership and the administration, we've made it a policy that no one is above training. We had already planned as much trainings as you can do that are not a live election, because there are some facets of elections that you need to be actively in the weeds to learn that particular process. But the ones that we can teach and learn with our voting machines, with our day-to-day operations, with planning and organizing everything, all of the moving parts and the moving parts within the moving parts, and so on and so forth. We have planned trainings throughout the summer for our leadership staff and any relevant partners that have started with us from other departments or so on and so forth, to make sure that everybody is trained across the board on as many things as we could possibly need to know.
And to that point, you know, we have, I know that during the election, somebody got sick and had to leave. And there was things that needed to be accessed that couldn't be because that person wasn't there. We are beholden to people's schedules. Specifically, oh, I can't stay that late, so we all have to leave. You know, and now with security, that's a whole nother story. Okay, I'm not talking about security or any of that stuff. What I'm saying is, if we make a plan to be there between this time and this time, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, well, I can't do that anymore. You know, if there's other people that are able to step in and actually take that role at that moment and take over so we can continue working, I think that's important. You were going to speak. I'm going to let you.
Well, I agree with you. The issue of having more than one person in a particular department be trained and aware of the process is not just something that it is in elections. It really is something that we have to institute across the county departments. We're going to talk about elections. That's going to happen. I know that they already have the trainings identified. Attorney Gates, I spoke to him about that with the standard operating procedures. He is also going to work on accessing training for our leadership, our staff. I can tell you, I will not tolerate somebody who says, who promises to stay or has to stay and then leaves. That's something I won't tolerate.
Yeah, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus.
Yeah,
I think we all know who it was and what happened.
But that's unacceptable.
Right.
That's unacceptable. And everybody will be on notice for that. But we will have this ability to cross-train as much as we possibly can. I think Ms. Cook is absolutely correct that sometimes you have to experience it to know certain nuances, but we will do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to leave soon, so if anybody has any questions, please, feel free to contact me. And again, thank you for all your time that you put in into the election.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else on that item number before we move on?
And I appreciate your willingness to work with us on everything.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, number 6, the Board of Elections and Registration meeting start time change to 6 p.m. This was old business. We had tabled it because we weren't sure if it was something that the Sheriff's Department was able to do. We were advised that we really should check with the Sheriff's Department, get this cleared, understandably, and also with the Bureau leadership. And after that meeting, this was during the May 3rd meeting, I believe. We did hear back from Ms. Pecora, who said that she had been in contact with the Sheriff's Department. She said it was fine with the Bureau leadership to move the meeting start time back forward to 6 o'clock, because, that means they have a later night. But she said they were in agreement and the sheriff's department as well. Certainly, I certainly appreciate all that. That's a lot. The whole purpose for this and the reason for it was because we heard a lot of public comment requests to move it to 6. I think I'm sure that the county council meetings start at 6. People getting out of work it would make it easier for them to come to the meetings, more accessible. So that was really the main reason I believe that we addressed this on the agenda. So it was put on for information discussion and board vote because we didn't vote on it and we couldn't change it. We couldn't change it without a board vote. So it had to be put back on the agenda. Anything anybody else would like to share before we get to that board vote on that?
I think we were all in agreement. We just wanted to wait for the information from the other offices, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was fine with it. You know, at 6 o'clock, that was fine with me.
Put it to a vote.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote and this is for the.
Okay, we want to have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to move the Board of Elections and Registration meetings start time from 5 PM to 6 PM.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mangan. Roll call vote. Ms. Cerniak,
Yes.
Ms. Vasaro.
Yes.
Mr. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Schramm.
Yes,
And Ms. Williams, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Our meeting times will change to 6 PM. We'll need to get that changed on the website. I'll be in contact with our new clerk to change the times and make a note at the top of our website meeting dates that the time has now changed, maybe in red and bold with some asterisks. Change times on the
I think
website.
It might have to be re-advertised too. which is-
Re-advertised. Probably will need to be legally. So I'm making a note of that now. A lot of stars around that. Okay. Next item is also old business. And that it is the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Elections and Registration and Administration related to documents that require board member signatures. It was put on for information discussion and board vote. This was, and I'll just read what was put on the agenda. I know it was referenced and it was spoke up during the public comment by County Manager Kokomo. The proposed motion was going to be a memorandum of understanding between the board and administration be created and posted on the Board of Elections and Registration MOU webpage stating any documents received by the administration that require Board of Elections and Registration member signatures must be presented to and signed only by the board members. These documents will also be presented in a timely manner in order to provide ample time for the board members to review prior to signing. Former acting county manager Sweats had shared with the board back when we had it on the agenda that he recommended that whoever became the permanent county manager make this determination. We heard from County Manager Kokomo during public comment that she said she wasn't going to do an MOU, and her word was enough and sufficient that in a matter of transparency. So I'll open it up to discussion with the board on anything anybody would like to give input on that.
I say we move on and not
Yeah.
worry about it because if she's not gonna sign it anyway, and I think we need to give her the opportunity to not follow through or to follow through on her promise. And if she doesn't follow through on her promise, then maybe we need to go further. But at this point, you know, she made it very clear that she's going to be transparent, that we're going to have a good relationship. And if that's the case, and she's not going to sign it anyway, I don't see the point of the discussion.
Yeah,
really.
I'm fine with that too.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, which is the write-in votes with unshaded circles, status going forward. And I put this on for discussion and board vote. I just made a couple of notes and then I'll open it up for any of the other board members. This was shared about in public comment, I know as well, and some input was given on this and some questions presented. The opinion of the Office of Law for the May 2023 primary election was that being that we use optical scanners, write-in votes need to have the bubble filled in to be valid. The court's opinion in both of the mayor race write-in court case and Mr. Brooks's write-in court case determination ruling. I reread through that, and basically in a nutshell, I'm pretty sure it said the judges was that a signature is sufficient without a shaded bubble. So I put it on the agenda to have a discussion with the rest of the board members for their thoughts on status going forward for this, so that we just go into the election knowing what we're going to do when we set the filters.
Basically, I think that we've got some court opinions now that says we should count them. I see no problem with counting. So going forward, we should count.
Title 25 says, state law says that the bubble must be filled in. And if the state law says the bubble needs to fill in, I mean, I think this point is also moot because we're using ballot marking devices now. So I think this is a complete like rehashing of old stuff. But I guess if we do this again, where we have to have the paper ballots or with mail-ins, the law is very clear and says that the bubble needs to be filled in. The reason that the court case comes into play is because we allowed it for the mayoral race. Because we allowed it for the mayoral race, the other one got approved. Okay, and because you can't have one without the other. So we said we'd count one, and because we said we'd count one and we would put it through, then the other one went through. The bottom line is that I think that Paula, am I wrong? Can you weigh in on this?
Well, before we
Yeah,
go-
I don't necessarily agree with you that because we agreed to the one, that the other one was going to go that way. I believe that the court in both cases would have given the voter the vote, would have given the benefit to the voter. It's still unclear, but right now we have court orders from Luzerne County, which means that the board should follow them unless and until there's further there's further litigation on this and further orders to come in the future. Now, it's not going to be as big of an issue as you said. However, the mail-in ballots still could be an issue. So you're going to have to at least somehow put it out there to try to get people to shade them so that it's less of an issue, or if there's any way that we can make it clearer or something like that.
So you're saying we have case law now that says that we have that we have to count the ones that are not shaded in.
I would recommend that, yes, because we have case law in Luzerne County.
No, that wasn't my question. My question is, do we have case law currently that states that a judge has told us that we have to count something that is written in without the bubble filled in?
Yes, we do that.
Then it's clear. We have to count it without the bubble being covered. If we actually have case law and in which that states that we have to count it, even though the bubble is not filled in, then we have to follow the law. And that's case law. So
that's the Luzerne County cases that we had in this past election.
Right. I apologize, but I'm going to admit the fault. I was looking into all the other things on the agenda, and that one I did not review the case law and review that specific decision as to whether that decision actually said that we had to count them. So if that says that, then I assume we don't have a choice.
The other thing I would like to add is, it's come up that, well, now that we're going to use the ballot marking devices, it doesn't matter. Well, it does. A third of the voters in Luzerne County use mail-in ballots. And to say, well, the mail-in ballots don't matter, it.
My apologies, I did correct myself.
Oh, no, it wasn't just yours saying it, but it's come up, it came up
it
here in
has.
public comment as well. But I think as Attorney Raddick has often stated in the past that it's better to enfranchise rather than disfranchise, or anyways. I guess at this point, any other board members want to give input before? I think we need to vote on this.
I think if a person takes the time to write a candidate's name, it should be regarded as a vote. And failure to fill in a bubble, just like you have to have the same level of leniency with regard to check marks and X's. Okay, I mean, they've casted a vote.
And I understand that.
Right.
My point is the law. You know me, I'm a rule of law person, and if the law says one, yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
However, with regard to having the state take the precedent and the say, just in my short tenure alone here, the state 3 times has failed to follow its own law.
Correct.
Okay, so we have an email that comes out the Friday after Thanksgiving from the acting Secretary of State telling us to begin the curing process in advance of Election Day.
Right.
Okay. Previous deputy director sent the previous ballot from May election for review regarding the candidates' addresses. It's reviewed by the state, and not one thing is mentioned about the failure to include the addresses. But yet we're the ones with eggs on our faces.
Yeah.
So we have precedent, we have case law. I say if a person takes the time to write their name on a ballot, it should be counted as a vote.
Anybody else? Any other board members? I just want to add, what does this mean? One of the things it means is the technology the filters have to be set a certain way in order to catch these mail-in ballots, if any paper ballots. And that means you have to set it for all undervotes. Now, in an election where it's a large ballot, it means a lot of time adjudicating write-ins. You have to examine every ballot that has an undervote, and a lot of people undervote. It's legal in order to catch these. That's how you do it. So you're not just setting it to say, let's find anything in writing where it's not shaded. The system cannot do that.
Mhm.
The only way they can catch it is you have to set the filter for all undervotes. So every single undervote will come up. And you know what? I think it was almost that what you said, but it wasn't quite. And I think we almost looked at every single ballot for this last election. And we were there for many, many days doing adjudication. So that's the bottom line for any board going forward. When if the vote is to, and I'm not saying, I'm totally in agreement with this. Just know that it's going to make for a longer adjudication. If it's a large ballot, if it's a small ballot, it's probably not going to be significant because very few people don't shade. I think that it's a small percentage that don't shade the bubble, even for write-ins. So, but you still have to look at all the undervotes in order to catch them. So with that said, anything else? But I think we do have to vote on it.
Motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to, going forward, the board will count all write-in votes with unshaded circles. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Mangan. Roll call vote. Ms. Fusaro?
Yes.
Mr. Mangan?
Yes.
Mr. Schramm?
Yes.
Ms. Cerniak?
Yes.
Ms. Williams? Yes. The motion passes unanimously. Going forward, the board will count all write-in votes with unshaded circles. Next item is 9, use of government employees and candidates on ballots as poll workers by Election Bureau for May primary election. I put this on for information and discussion, and I want to let everybody know right up front that my understanding was when I received the poll worker list that I requested right before Election Day, that there were a couple of people on there who I recognized and looking that were candidates on the ballot. I was told that one wasn't working the poll, but I wasn't told the other one wasn't. In follow-up, after I put the agenda together, I was told that even though that person was on the list, they actually did not, the other person did not work the poll. So there were no candidates on the ballot who worked the poll. There were a couple, two, and it's certainly not a significant number, who were, it appears, public officials of a sort, like a township secretary who was also a poll worker and not on the ballot. And a municipal treasurer who was, I think, a majority inspector or clerk. Anyways, I don't think they should be allowed to be a poll worker. I certainly can recognize how a very, very small percentage of a large number of poll workers could get, in a very, very busy election. There could be a little oops like that, and something could be missed. So I'm just putting forward is, how to prevent that. It comes up, it happens, if there's a process. I know it's on the application form online, someone would have to check the box saying, I am, are you an elected official or a government employee? But sometimes people are asked to be a poll worker and they don't necessarily go through that form online. It's done maybe on the phone or through the administrative assistants or somebody in the election bureau, and that might get missed. So just in a way to work towards continuing to try to prevent this, I'm just putting that forward.
So maybe a good policy, maybe a good.
I do have a, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Pecora, go ahead.
Oh, since Ms. Williams and I had spoke about this earlier in the week, my thoughts were maybe that we could communicate, like going into any election, we can communicate with the municipalities that this is the list of poll workers, judges, inspectors, and let them know that this, this is who we have signed up to work this upcoming election. Can you confirm if they are an employee of yours or if they're an elected official? Because sometimes the treasurers in municipalities, for example, are appointed and sometimes they're elected officials. Is that something that maybe we can communicate to the municipalities as this is who we have on our rosters to work the upcoming election? Because maybe they're unaware. I'm, that kind of seems to be, we're all at this learning curve, and maybe the municipalities don't know. So maybe we can talk to the administrative assistants or their office managers at these, at the municipality level and confirm that. And then we will have the appropriate information going into the election so we don't run into something like this in the future. Any thoughts on that?
Ms. Pecora, do the people who work as poll workers fill out an application?
So some of them fill an application out online. I know in my previous life before.
So I'm going to stop that. That's exactly what I know, but that's what I was in the middle of talking when everybody interrupted me. And that's what I'm talking about. And I was going to make a point about that, but go ahead, John. It's okay. It's all right.
No,
you're on the phone and I know it's hard to hear, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I apologize. There was a little bit of a delay and I did not mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. Just speaking from my experience as a poll worker previously, I know that there were judges of elections in my precinct where I worked years ago where they were making phone calls last minute because they were trying to fill spaces for poll workers back then. So they weren't necessarily going through an application process. And there are times even now we see, people are dropping out last minute. Things come up, things happen, we understand. And even the admins are scrambling to fill those spaces. So just to streamline, maybe that's something that we can communicate with the municipalities. this is who we have on the rosters. Can you confirm, are they an elected official? Are they a candidate? And then, act accordingly.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. I had it here that I think that there should be an annual interview over the phone. Just, as they're calling to confirm the poll workers, they have a form in front of them, put their name at the top, the poll worker's name right at the top on the right-hand side of the paper. Are you an elected official? Okay, are you on the ballot this year? Any of the questions that we need to ask, are you available from this time to this time on election day? Are you, every single question that needs to be answered or asked and answered, put that down, and as the administrative assistants are calling, they ask them a real brief, maybe 10 question, even if it's between 5 and 10 questions, just to allow them to know, okay, yes, I'm available. No, I'm not this year, whatever, because, and even if we make an online form, an online survey form, because the issue this year, we had people that we had questions whether they worked, but they didn't work. We went through this on an email string. We were talking about this and they never worked. They hadn't worked since November, and they're on the ballot this year, but they worked in November. They worked in November, but they were a carryover, and we should have known, though, we should have had that inputted somewhere to where we could reference it very quick. And I know that you helped out with this, Jen, a lot in going through all of that. But you shouldn't have to worry about looking at their pay plus the other form, plus this form, plus this form. It should be streamlined into one, and I don't know if that's even possible. It may not be. So
I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I do just want to say.
I made my point. I'm good.
Okay, so we do have a centralized database where we manage our poll workers from, where we keep track of who is working where. The data entry side of making sure we have the updates from who actually worked, that's still a process. We're still fairly new at entering all of our poll worker information into one centralized database. I can speak to when I started just under 2 years ago, everybody had their own paper forms that we kept track of who was here, and I had mine and you had yours, and we didn't have a centralized database. So that was instituted in November of 2021, where we started this process. And obviously there are still, it is under 2 years we've been doing this, so we are still working out. We've got collectively from our admin assistants well over 30 years worth of experience in doing things a certain way. And so we're all trying to make sure that we get it right. There are still some kinks with updating that. However, I believe this was something that was discussed prior to my starting in operations. Like, I remember this was a discussion early on in my experience with the Bureau, where we were contacting our judges of elections and our poll workers and confirming if they were public officials in any way, if they were elected officials in any other capacity. And so I think, to your point, updating that for every election, because that is how we ensure that we have workers for each election. Our staff makes sure that they are contacting their poll workers for each precinct prior to every election. And so making sure, probably when they're reaching out initially about training, we can have them confirm they are still not on the ballot. They are not a public official in any way, shape, or form. And that way we'll know before training if we need to replace somebody, if something has come up. Just in, we've got somebody on vacation from this time to this time. And then we'll know in advance, and making sure that we were getting that updated in our database as well. So I think that'll help streamline the way that you're referring to.
Yeah, I think it's
into
just
our
if we
existing
had it
process.
I think my biggest thing is, if it was in, like you said, one centralized location where it's very easily accessible, and while you're on the phone, have you? Yes. Are you? No. Have you? That, yes. Are you coming to training? Which date? Boom. If it's all in one thing, we know they were asked that question, and it's no brainer. And then, then when in looking up that data, then, when Denise sends out her famous email stating that, hey, is this person an elected official? Boom, it comes right up and there is no question anymore, you know what I mean? And it makes it so much, oh, well, let me, instead of, oh, well, let me see if they received a paycheck from this. It says they worked, but then, we're not sure. And then, and that way it's not, and I'm not like pointing at anyone. What I'm saying is that if it was in all one location, it'd be much easier for everyone, I think, so.
So that, yes, so I think we're saying exactly the same
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
We already have a centralized location. We'll add it to our process that is already existing to help streamline the concerns of the board.
Thank you.
Moving forward.
All right, thanks.
I just want to go back to
Can I
what,
just add one more thing?
go ahead, Jen.
In discussions with this and reviewing what the law says, I believe there are restrictions for certain like county employees, state employees, things like that, as well as being an elected official and a candidate. Like I couldn't go and work at an election polling place because I'm a county employee. So it goes a little bit further than just being a candidate or an elected official.
Right.
If Paula, maybe you can confirm that.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yes, we've discussed this in the past. Government employees should not be poll workers. So that includes county employees.
Okay. I know there are other specifics as well. I don't know how does everyone feel about maybe the possibility of like some sort of like a waiver or a form that when we're not only asking these questions, but maybe there's a form we could email or send out to the poll workers that say, they're kind of like confirming or an attestation that, hey, I'm not a county employee, an elected official, a candidate, something of that nature. And maybe that would streamline it, and then we kind of have backup proof.
So we can also cover that during training.
I don't think you're gonna get, that's
right.
something.
I think this is a lot for the
I don't think, I think.
process,
I do have faith in the poll workers. I think that if you ask them over the phone, if they are, they're gonna tell you. I just don't think you're gonna, if you send out a form, I don't think you're gonna get it back. I'm just being honest here. I don't think you may not get very many back.
I'm
I mean,
totally
if you
open to
do
that.
if you do it in training, you might get a couple, 2, 3, to sign, to sign if the
I'm
instructor
just throwing
remembers.
the idea out there.
No, it just thought,
I just want to add, I know, Ms. Pecora, you brought up about contacting all the municipalities. And I mean, personally, I think that's a lot of extra work on the election bureau.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary. I just think you have enough to do. My thought is how to address this, doing the least amount of work as possible for adding on more work at the election bureau end. And I really just think that, and I know it's kind of, I think sometimes the issue, like you said, is people who drop out and the judges might be scrambling to get someone and they find someone and they might not go through the process of asking those questions. I think that you have the text system, to judges, just send a little reminder, by the way, somebody drops out, just remember, they can't be this, this, and this. And then have the person who does the training just add in a one-liner. Oh, by the way, just remember, if you do pick up somebody at the last minute, they can't be this, this, or this. And I mean, I
Well,
think
what's the
that if there's
difference,
one
though?
person that slips through the cracks at times.
I mean, all things considered, there were two for this
Two,
election.
yeah.
And we have
Right.
1,000.
I think that's very, very
Roughly
good.
1,080 to 89 poll
Yeah.
workers throughout the county. So statistically, it's not terrible.
It's excellent.
It would be ideal to have zero, but
But I
see,
don't think you need to add a lot of extra work on this.
Right,
Okay,
but
yeah,
it
I
doesn't
just-
take,
yeah,
I don't
just-
think it takes,
Just a thought.
I don't think it
before,
takes
but yeah.
much work either.
we're absolutely going to move forward
Yeah,
with
okay,
the process of confirming while we're making our calls.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else?
No, good collaboration on this. Thanks.
Okay, then, and the next one I think really is, I don't
Yeah,
even know
that's
if we
the
need to
same
address
thing.
it, was the request for a written standard of procedure to be created by the Bureau leadership and provided for the Board of Election Review for recruitment of poll workers and qualification requirements for poll workers, discussion and board vote. But as County Manager Crocomo shared, and it's going to really apply to all of these that request standard procedures, that there's going to be a process that's going to be implemented, a consultant type thing, to help do some of these things that, and many are already in place, as Ms. Cerniak pointed out and shared. There is a large book, and I've seen it too, a binder with processes and procedures at the Bureau.
Question, Denise.
Go ahead.
Is it, should we just wait and maybe move these? Can we do that or no? Because this has to do with the.
It's something that's gonna be done, really, that,
Yeah,
you know,
and
Nolda
I
has
don't.
hired an attorney to.
We can just say in
basically
each
yeah.
one, if anybody wants to add a little something, but we
Okay.
can just make mention again.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to go, because there may be something going forward at one of these other agenda items that somebody might want to give input on, besides recognizing that there is going to be a process put in place. The only thing I wanted to add, I do want to add one, a note I made about standard operating procedures is that they benefit not only the Election Bureau itself, but the public. I believe it really is a best practice. It limits the risk of election errors to have standards of practice. It limits ad hoc decision-making. It creates a consistency of work across the staff. So it really benefits all of those who work in the Election Bureau, in leadership as well as administrative roles. It provides the staff with opportunities to review processes ahead of them taking place in order to be adequately prepared for implementing and leading a process. If they're not certain on how something's done, they have the ability to review something. Elections happen maybe twice a year, so if it were me, I'd probably have to review it. It enables retention of institutional knowledge as well on site, and not just in somebody's mind who could possibly leave or resign. And it's critical to have this information in the event that there is if there is turnover, for those who are left behind and who are still in place, if they weren't running that process or that procedure. So it really is important. But that's all I did want to say about standard operating procedures. Anybody else before we move on to actually number 12, because we're skipping number 11. We took that off the
So
agenda.
Denise, I'm curious, because all of these pertain to the standard procedure, operating procedure, which Attorney Gates is going to work on.
Skip them all.
Can we just put them all together?
I could read through them.
If you
right
want
now.
to, I mean, for the record, yeah,
Sure.
but I
Okay.
can't.
So number 12 was request that a written standard of procedure be created by Bureau leadership and provided for Board of Election Review for stocking and sealing voting machines prior to deployment to polls, including a checklist requiring 2 deep Bureau leadership sign off. That's been discussed at a previous meeting as well. Number 13 was a request that a written standard of procedure be created by the Bureau leadership and provided for the Board of Election Review for the Election Bureau's 2% audit process. And then number 14 was a request that a written standard of procedure be created by Bureau leadership and provided for Board of Election review for the red ballot bag seals and red ballot bag chain of custody cards, beginning with the initial sealing at the poll, which was previously voted on by the board during the July 2022 our board meeting. And then 15 is the request for a written standard of procedure be created by Bureau leadership and provided for Board of Election review for the Bureau leadership's pre-canvassing instructions given to election day workers. I just do want to add on that last one that on election day, there were several Bureau leadership, but the one that was with us in the pre-canvassing room did not have the knowledge of how to lead and the pre-canvassing instructions. The ones that did were in doing the phone lines. And so there seemed to be a real slowness in getting going, and actually the board ended up leading it. And I don't think it's the role of the board to lead. I know we're told we're not supposed to get involved with the everyday administration of the Bureau, and I want to stick with that. I don't think it's good because board members can come in and out of the board, leave, resign as well. And to rely on the board to lead is probably not best practice and really isn't our role, I don't think. We're there as oversight to address questions that come up with discrepancies of mail-in ballots. But as for giving instruction, I don't think that's our role. I don't think we should be doing it. Not really comfortable myself taking the lead because I feel like I'm overstepping when I'm instructing, which I think is a role of the Election Bureau leadership.
And the only comment I would add is that that the Bureau, which is your Bureau rep today, lucky you. Since the Bureau, I would just request that the Bureau take a look at the items that are on here and make sure that there is a standard operating procedure for these moving forward. And that way we don't have to re-add them to the agenda and they'll already be handled. So
I have been taking copious notes.
Okay, good. I saw you writing. You're writing your little heart out over there.
Oh,
So.
yeah. You know me.
Yeah.
Anybody else before we move into the comment on non-agenda items? Okay, we'll move into the comment on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters not listed on the agenda, or anything that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Again, it's limited to 3 minutes and 1 comment time per person. I think the microphone's still on up there. I'm not sure, but we'll start with who in person. Anybody in person who would like to speak, just go up to the podium, state your name and your municipality.
Linda Joseph, Wilkes-Barre. I just have 2 points that I'd like to make. As to the county council ordinance and amendment to basically disband the current election board and appoint 5 new members is, in my opinion, totally irresponsible. Have they not learned that it is vital to have stability, consistency, and crucial experience and knowledge in the responsibilities that this board has? I personally witnessed each and every one of you dedicating days and days to process ballots in this past May primary. I did not see any member of Luzerne County Council come and watch the process and time and commitment that you give as volunteers. I also wonder how many people know you do not get paid for what you do. I was actually astounded that the county does not even give you a stipend for lunch. Each day you are there from 9 a.m. to probably 5 p.m. most days. I will be encouraging anyone I know to vote no on this question or questions as you decide, to change the structure of the board and how its members are appointed. That will appear on the ballot in November. The second thing was, as I witnessed the adjudication process, I learned how you do the scattered category. And I totally understand that if you see that obviously those in the numbers of the write-ins are not ever going to exceed the person on the ballot, that you don't look at those, and that would be hundreds and hundreds more. So that makes sense because it wouldn't affect the election. But I do think that they should appear on the website as with all of the other reports of the election results. And when someone comes to the Election Bureau and asks, can I see in my race, you've got 100 people listed under scattered, can I see who they voted for? And they're told no, because it's inconsequential. It's inconsequential, of course, to that particular election because they can't win over the person who has most ballots. But I'm sure that those numbers, those people are in the computer because everything is scanned, right? So if that's not true, but that's, or maybe somehow the software can be made that it does do that, because everybody has the right to see where their vote lies and how it came out. So that's just my, my idea, my suggestion. I've just heard from people that had no idea what scattered meant once they looked at the website, and they felt that they candidates would have liked to have seen, what those numbers were and who actually those people voted for, especially if it was an opposite primary, an opposite party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something really with this. I've been on the board a while, and I actually started before all the change in the laws where we have the, the mail-in ballots and everything. We never really had a process. When this paper ballot started, we would sit there and we would the board always had great intentions of writing everything out, of listing every single voter. And the old system we had, the old ESNS system, they actually, you had to use the machines and it would actually print everything out for you. Dominion currently doesn't do this. I don't know if there'll be changes on that. But, we'd start this process. We'd start writing everything out. We have deadlines to meet. I mean, we have to get this certified in time. We get halfway into this process and realized there was no way we could continue on doing this. And so we basically stopped and we would start scattering a lot of things. There was no process for it. And frankly, that was not the way to go. We finally have this statistical process where we can at least get things certified on time, at least count everything that really needs to be counted. So that's a major improvement. The one guy from IT basically came up with that system for us. I'm hoping that Dominion is having a big update in their systems and maybe this will improve things. Because again, if everything's printed out, at least from the ballot marking devices, that cuts down on a lot of time. And it's maybe possible to do that in the future. I don't know, but I got to tell you, to have a consistent process that makes sense, you have no idea how much of an improvement that is for past elections.
Without the scattered category, and I didn't understand it when I first came on, but without the scatter category, you saw a very small snippet of what we went through. Okay, you saw a snippet of what we went through, and we actually would have to add
How many type every single name.
Yeah.
and that wasn't even a general. Okay, that wasn't even a general election. It was a municipal election, which is well, actually the municipal.
Yeah, they are.
Now that I think about it, the municipal.
Every
is worse.
election is.
But
a lot,
yeah, I mean, scattering is almost necessary. I know everybody wants to see their name. You know how many people wrote me in for county council? Okay, not enough to win, that's for sure. But look at Alyssa's name is up there. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, I didn't have enough votes to win. And at the end of the day, that saves us a whole lot of time. And so unfortunately, sometimes we have to go with not the feelings.
Yeah.
Did you want to add?
Yeah.
So the only thing that I would add is that the system that we have, when the board chooses to scatter, those names, just because the ballot gets scanned, the image of the ballot has been scanned, the data that we're pulling is the image of the ballot. So what you're seeing is not the contest information. What we have to enter for every single one, and that includes any race that had been scattered, would have been the names at that point. So the board opts to scatter. And so those names, there isn't it's not a report that we can pull. They would have needed to, during adjudication, have made the decision to count each and every right in order to see each and every name. So to say that it's not just that it's inconsequential at that point, it's that that data hasn't been entered and we are unable to provide.
They're still counted.
The
votes are
right, the votes are
counted.
counted.
Oh, yeah,
Counted,
the votes are
fine.
counted.
But not under names, yeah, specific
And
names.
just put in a different category.
Yeah, and it's, we, you know, I'm sure Dominion is aware of these issues because, you know, it just, the state has to approve any updates and that takes a while.
Yes. Thank you. Any other in person?
Real briefly, I think maybe the next meeting, we could discuss whether we're gonna use a machine or paper. I know it's been alluded to that we're gonna use a paper machine or Dominion machines at the election, but I think we need to make that clear to the voters that actually how is the process we're gonna use, so people can prepare for which process they're actually going to use, as opposed to finding out sooner or later rather than sooner. On the training for campaign finance, one of the issues that we all realized when we were building the database was most of the folks who we identified that didn't file campaign finance reports didn't file them because they didn't file them because on purpose. They didn't realize, because it's been such a moving target over the years, committees think that if I don't take any money and I don't have to file. That's totally not true, but we've never trained anybody in the proper procedure. So it's really unfair when you put a campaign finance report out and you say, well, this committee never filed their campaign finance report, and now everybody looks at them sideways as if they did something nefarious. It's not nefarious. These candidates and committees would file them if they knew they had to file them, because they're not interested in hiding anything. They just don't know. And that comes to the training part that we talk about, where Emily said that, well, we could do a video to Mr. Magnan's point, where the party chairs could do training. As a Republican, the Republican Party had what candidates that were on the ballot, they would come to Republican headquarters, and somebody who knew something about campaign finance inevitably would stand up in front and say, this is how you do the form. If you have questions, see so-and-so or such and such. We need to get more of that outreach out to the candidates by either the party to help us, but certainly I know the Bureau is thinking about maybe 1 day or 2 days before the elections, have a candidate come in, have a seminar where they could come in and also put the video up so that we could give that training. Because I just want to be clear that these candidates and committees didn't file these reports and had to pay fines. And most of them paid their fines and their fees willingly. They didn't come in here kicking and screaming, oh, geez, I got to pay all this money. They paid it because they realized they didn't file the forms. And they made it very clear that the reason they didn't file it is because they just didn't know. So I think that goes to the point of campaign finance. It's a difficult animal. And unless you're involved in a political process, it's really difficult to understand. Myself and people in the Bureau, we had a hard time figuring it out. We had to read the law over and over and over. So I sympathize with a candidate who's running for school director, doesn't get a salary, and he just put his name on the ballot because he wants to do something good for his community or his school district. And now he gets lambasted because he didn't file a campaign finance report because he just didn't know. I just think we need to be really clear on why they didn't file them and move forward with the training. And I think as we do that, we'll get more response. I'm sure that we will have no problems in the second Friday post-election or pre-election. I'm sure we'll have no problem with campaign finance reports. I'll bet you everybody will be filing 0 reports because they don't want to have this issue. So I just want to put that out for everybody to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it just reminded me that regarding campaign finance, I think I'll keep it as an agenda item just to get updated status on it as we're going along towards the general election. I think it'll also keep it kind of in the news and in the awareness as we're going through the process of, still tweaking this, I think. And I think the public is very aware that it's still a work in progress and working towards improving that. So I'll just keep.
And if I
adding it
might,
to the agenda.
when your agenda gets closer to the deadline for the second Friday pre-election, if you could put that on your agenda, maybe make an announcement as a board to say, as a general reminder to the candidates, make sure you know you have to file that. So that's something that the board can help with as we also get that information out through the bureau. So thank you for doing it. I appreciate it.
Anybody else in person? Go ahead.
It's so refreshing tonight to see that the county manager and election bureau staff took the interest to come to the meeting. I know there was some conversation about that before. I believe you said they used to attend in person and you thought they should again, and I'm really glad to see that. It's also refreshing to hear a lot of good ideas tonight and progress about streamlining the county efforts. It's very positive. What I did want to bring up, though, I did have some questions about this Judicial Watch federal election integrity lawsuit against Luzerne County. And I'd like to know how much of the county's portion of the $15,000 settlement to Judicial Watch was for Judicial Watch legal costs and fees, and what was Luzerne County's cost for its own legal fees in the lawsuit. I did see the settlement mandates the county publicly report its ongoing voter roll cleanup by June 30th of each year on the Department of State website. So in checking that, the data listed showed 15,584 voters who were reported as removed from the 2022 voter registration rolls, with 9,303 of them removed for failure to respond to confirmation notices and vote in the two most recent federal general elections. And 2,797 were removed due to death. So the question is, what happened to the balance of 3,484 voters? What were they removed for? Presumably, these numbers indicate that at least 15,584 names were questionable votes in prior elections. So I'd also like to know, when will the 2023 data be made public? Waiting for a year for data to appear is not helpful. As long as Pennsylvania continues to use the ERIC system, the public trust is not going to be restored. After Judicial Watch sued, Pennsylvania admitted to reporting incorrect data to a federal agency, and that in 18 counties, only a combined total of 15 ineligible voters were removed in over 2 years. Obviously, ERIC's figures are too low and its system is ineffective, and nearly a dozen states have left ERIC or have proposed legislation to do so. So my request to you is, if you sincerely, and I think you do, want to achieve election integrity, I'm asking the Election Board and Bureau to request using fractal technology, which is offered by Omega for America. This technology constantly scrubs all databases for bad addresses. It reports new voters. It deletes ones who moved or died, and it provides full visibility of seeing any change in voter rolls in real time. It has various uses, even in Medicare, Medicaid, and it could probably also help with your poll worker database. So if mail-in voting continues, whether we want it or not, I hope you'll take this extra measure to instill public trust by offering this real-time transparency of voter rolls. I think it would mean a lot for restoring integrity to our elections. Thank you.
What is that called? Fractal what?
It's called Fractal, F-R-A-C-T-A-L.
Right.
Technology, and it's provided by Omega and the number 4 America.
All right. Just so you are aware, I hope this is okay. I wanted to talk. Just so you are aware, there could be like probably 20 plus reasons why a person is removed off the voter rolls. Okay. One of them could be not voting in two federal elections. That kicks them off.
Right. They were in that one count.
There is failure to respond.
That's in that count.
Yeah, there are someone moving and no longer in the district, and we find out about it. There's obviously death. There are so many other reasons, so many reasons for why someone is removed off the voter rolls. You know, that we can't even, you know, and the voter rolls are cleaned every single year now. Okay, that was a lawsuit that has been settled. That was, hey, clean up your voter rolls. We found this many. We got them off the rolls. We did what we were supposed to do, and now we do them every year. And so if you see people being removed off the voter rolls, that means we're doing our job. Honestly,
Right,
that means the Bureau is doing their job. If you see people coming off the voter rolls, that means
But just
you know,
to
they're doing their
underscore,
work.
Yearly compared to real time,
Right.
think of how much more efficient.
Well, yeah, and that's why I wanted to know the name of this. This sounds like a really cool thing to have. You know, and maybe it's something that we as a board or the Bureau can look into. But what you have to also understand is we don't dictate technology, the state does. So unfortunately, even though this sounds really great, and we would have to see if it would comply with state law, and that has to go down to Harrisburg. So it's something I just wanted to answer you. I wanted to give you something back, but that's something that you would have to go to Harrisburg to get changed, okay? Because a lot of the things that we use are dictated by the state and
I
and
understand
state
that.
law, and that may or may not be. I don't know. I'm gonna look into it. I am gonna look at it and see.
And that's
what it
all I
is.
was hoping, that you would
Yeah.
look into
Yeah, I
it,
will.
you'd be interested, and if you find that you think it can really help, which I think it will, that you'd even make that request to the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is it just once a year that we purge these, or is it like an ongoing process?
So it is
It's
on.
ongoing. We just report once a year.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right.
So, you know, every so
And
many weeks or months,
right.
there's a
So we
bunch
did
that will
our-
come
our
out.
Major mailings, our confirmation mailings, were done the end of June.
Okay, so.
I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head. I should have written it down, but I meant to mention to the board that we did already start our process.
But what was a stack like this of the stuff that we had to go through
Oh, it
the
was-
last time? We killed a lot of trees that day.
I sure did.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else in person?
Alan Henninger of Dallas Township. Two issues. One, I'm hoping that the Bureau will consider reinstituting what I refer to as a debriefing after an election. Bob Morgan, when he was director, had that in place, and I haven't seen it since. I think it's a very viable tool. I'd like to see if the Bureau would consider, you know, that happening
That'll be
again.
going out the next week.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. There is a considerable discussion on the qualifications and recruitment, and whether somebody has a holds a public office or something like that. Keep in mind, and it was brought up, sort of hinted at, that finding poll workers is not necessarily an easy job. Okay. First off, I think if the legislature would get involved, we might have a better chance. And that would be because pretty much we've limited the pool of possibility to retirees and unemployed people as the biggest part of that poll worker available pool. Okay, everybody else has a job and they can't afford a 12 to 14 hour day to take off work. So I think, and everybody here is well capable of handling interactions with their legislators, you know, and say, hey, can you help us out on the election side here? Can you make it a holiday in Pennsylvania? and we can get more workers at the polls just doing that. And can you please amend Act 77 where you have capped the price that is permitted to pay a poll worker at $200 for a day? Okay, the board's not allowed by law to pay anything more than that. Okay, 4 days of work. And you're paying $195 for a clerk for a day. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But then as a judge, I do a little bit more work than the clerk, and I get $5 more for the day. Okay. And I'm not saying that I'm not worth 500 or 200, and I'm not saying that they're not worth 195. I'm saying the board's been hamstrung by the law and saying, for some reason, and maybe there's a logical reason to it, and I don't know it. The people that wrote the law and signed it into Act 77 says you may not pay them, anybody that works in the poll, more than $200. They say, get real. Okay. I've already visited my representative, my senator, and I brought this up. Okay. And I think this one little voice isn't enough. Okay. I would like to see somebody else that has input. Try to make some kind of headway there, and maybe you can add in there, and would you mind turning it into a holiday?
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Henninger. I knew we
Thank you.
would benefit from hearing more of your insight. Thank you.
Can I
think it should
actually-
keep
can I
coming.
add something just to piggyback on what he had said? Just because I think it's of relevance, it's important. There were discussions earlier this week between Bureau Leadership Administration and County Manager. What we're going to do, and we've discussed this with Ms. Crocomo, that we are going to be sending out a post-election update. We think that it is important, and I know it fell through the cracks in the past, but just a debriefing, what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better, how can we move forward in ways that we can improve our election day processes. So just to give a peace of mind to the concern that was addressed under public comment, I just feel that it's relevant to state that.
Thanks. Okay.
And it's greatly appreciated. I don't think it takes the place of an in-person meeting with the leadership from the Bureau and the judges for that interaction thing. But thank you very much for all the
Mr. Henninger,
considerations.
I've
and-
often said it should be like jury duty, where you
That's only
automatically.
$30.
Huh?
That's only $30.
No, what I'm saying is that you're mandatory. Once you get it, you have to do it and you can get off work for it. You know what I mean? So.
And they can add into that bill, if they wouldn't mind, about the fact that this is taxable. Okay, just like jury duty, this is taxable.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't get that whole amount of money. Although I can remember when I first was approached, this is tax-free. I got those quote, I got that phrase, and that's not true. That's not true.
All right,
So-
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else in person? Okay.
Susan Bartholomew Palmer, Wilkes-Barre. And Ms. Koshin was giving me a segue to bring this up again, I believe, with her incorrect data that she was talking about. I'm still hoping that I'm going to get some kind of a reasonable response for the possible 18,900 ballots that have been unaccounted for since November, for the November election. I still haven't. Last I heard was they used the wrong reconciliation form from the previous election.
I don't have an answer for you. I'm gonna be honest
I
with you.
know.
I'm not trying, and I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to
I know.
figure out what you're talking about. That we have 18,000 ballots missing.
November election, we received emergency ballots and provisional ballots. And the reconciliation form said 50. We actually got 100.
Oh,
Remember?
you mean ballots that were never returned to the election bureau? Well, I can address that. I mean, I can really make it very.
No, where are they though? How are they
I
reconciled?
don't know, but I will tell you this, like it's, when the scanners will only pick up the election that it's being, that is being used. So even if, let's say somebody stole all the ballots that weren't used for the May primary, okay? And they filled them all out, hoping they could, use them in a different election. It's impossible. Not only are the people on the ballot different, but you have, it's not readable. So it does matter, but it doesn't. I'm not sure. I didn't know that there were that many missing.
Well, if you calculate, there's 189 wards, correct? Times 100.
There's 186.
86, I apologize, 186.
186.
That changes the number then.
And you're saying that you were supposed to get 100, but you got 50. So you want to know where all the
No,
other
we got
we are-
100 there.
according to the reconciliation form
right?
that they give to
Which
us.
was a typo and that was
Yes.
addressed on the
Yes, we
reconciliation
did
form
talk
it-
about that.
Correct.
Okay, it was the
Supposed to receive
typo.
100 of each.
We received 100, but on the reconciliation form, it only said 50. So unless everyone that's working through there and doing that reconciliation form and putting their signature on it, verifying that they did it, unless they put that information on there saying that, no, we didn't get 50, we got 100 in each category, emergency and provisional, then where does that, when it gets up to the bureau for everything, how is that all reconciliated? I still don't understand that.
Where she's talking about returned ballots to the bureau.
Right, so I believe what's being said is that on the reconciliation form, just the paper that the Bureau created, there was a typo that carried over from the primary, that there were 50 of each style of emergency or provisional. The actual number sent to every precinct was 100, which was identified by the Bureau and addressed with the board during reconciliation when we were confirming the numbers of ballots that were returned.
But
Wasn't that the last day that we adjudicated? Remember we were looking for,
I know this has come up where we, at a recent meeting, we shared, could we make sure those slips are correct? And it was said, yeah, they've been corrected, or they're, that doesn't happen again.
For the future.
They get the wrong number.
Yeah, but
What happens to those blank ballots? Are they shredded or they're sitting in a box in the warehouse?
They come
With all the other paper?
were they all returned?
How do you know?
Well, they go through the bags.
Okay. Okay.
They go through the
Good.
bag, the judges' bags, and they have the ones returned. That's how you get the number of the spreadsheet. That's how you get how many were returned. So there's a line item for that. There is a line on there that says ballots returned, right? Am I wrong? Or
Correct.
okay.
When we certify an election, we have gone through the reconciliation
Yeah.
process and we certify the election. And just like we did recently, we went through and we did the reconciliation. We actually left our meeting, we continued it, and we came back and we certified. And that was because we were still working through the reconciliation process. So every election, we do a reconciliation process with the Bureau does it, then we go through it with them. So for the 2022 election, November, we certified it. We had
Oh, I
gone
know
through
you
the
certified it.
reconciliation process.
Yes.
Any other questions about it?
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in person? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to anybody on the Zoom platform. If you would like to speak, just raise your hand. Or if you're on a phone line, just jump right in. There's only one, and I know that's Ms. Pecora. I do want to go back to these emails. because I'm not feeling comfortable about not reading them, because we had somebody from in-person who discussed the same topic that these emails are on, and this is for non-agenda items. So these people did request their comments to be read at the meeting, this meeting, and some of the, on July 12th. And I do feel it's important just to read them now during this. There's only, I believe there are 5 and 4, and then there was one more on my phone that came in late. So, and I'm afraid that they could get lost in the sauce for the next meeting, be forgotten. But I don't want to get into a situation where somebody says, I did request they be read during this meeting, and they could have been read on the non-agenda item public comment. So the first one is from Lisa Napersky, Fairview Township. Dear election board members, please read my comment below at your meeting on July 12th. Thank you. Luzerne County Council's proposed referendum regarding the makeup of the election board is very long and confusing and includes multiple changes to the makeup of our currently nonpartisan election board. As written, Luzerne County voters cannot be expected to fully grasp the consequences of this drastic amendment to the charter. I agree with Controller Griffith, who stated that this is actually 3 separate questions and should be put to voters as such. It should have been voted on separately by council after public input on each component. I urge the Board of Elections to send the draft referendum back to council for separate hearings and individual votes on each proposed change to the county charter. I also ask that voters be fully educated about these proposed changes prior to the general election, and that council hold town halls throughout the county to explain a yes vote means they agree our elections should be placed in the hands of the obviously extremely partisan county council, which moved forward with this referendum process, despite the fact that dozens of citizens presented comments in clear opposition to their scheme, while not one single voter spoke up in favor of the referendum at last month's hearing. Thank you for your consideration. Second one is from J. Notar Tomaso from West Wyoming. Please read at the meeting in my absence. Dear Luzerne County Board of Election members, due to the fact that the ill-advised attempt by Luzerne County Council to negatively impact the bipartisan nature of the Board of Elections and the fact that they have not properly executed their proposal, I recommend that you vote tonight to reject it. Some of the many glaring mistakes are as follows. The ballot question covers multiple issues, not just one, each of which must be addressed separately. The wording of the amendment includes changes that are not part of the question. The public needs to know exactly what they are voting on. Luzerne County Council is required to hold separate hearings and separate votes for each change they wish to make. This has not occurred and is required. The wording of the ballot question is confusing and inaccurate. The incompetent and erroneous manner in which this amendment was created leaves you no choice but to reject it by voting against it. I also do not think it is your duty to fix the wording. It is a responsibility of county council to properly execute any amendments with proper public hearings and votes without censoring the public input. And any future ballot question must be precise, accurate, succinct, and understandable. This is from Andrea Glad, Wilkes-Barre. Is it not true that the day after the council voted to put this amendment on the November ballot, the Luzerne County District Attorney issued a finding that the problems we have been experiencing with elections is due in the largest degree to the fact that there has been unprecedented turnover on the election board? And yet the council is seeking to amend the charter to require more and faster turnover. Voters in the county are beginning to conclude that this council is more concerned with limiting fair and free election than it is encouraging them. Defeat this latest attempt at controlling election outcomes. Hello, this is from Michael Mirabito from 44. I'm a voter in Luzerne County and was informed this is the proper venue to register my disagreement with the proposal to amend the Luzerne County, Pennsylvania Home Rule Charter in regard to election oversight. A free and fair election is the linchpin of any free society. The council does not have the right to impose its own rule over the Board of Elections. If this attempt is successful, partisan politics will be introduced into what should be a nonpartisan event. Such overtly political actions are already creating havoc throughout the country. They should not gain further ground in Luzerne County through this proposal. Thank you. Karen Wagner, Karen Wagner, Mountaintop. As a resident of Luzerne County, I would like to express my opposition to the amendment being considered in this evening's session. Its sheer volume appears to be a deliberate obfuscation designed to bury the main agenda, the appointment of board members by the partisan council. It is easy to predict that such an amendment would result in legal challenges. This county already spends more than enough of our taxpayer dollars on lawsuits. The amendment is not only unfair and unethical, it is a terrible waste of time and effort, and its implementation would result in the waste of more county resources. Please vote no. And there's one more that was came in after I had left, but it was also requested, and I have it right here. It is from Katerina Gareda. I am submitting a comment, and I would appreciate the comment being read at tonight's meeting. Overall, this is too confusing, unclear, and voters are not going to understand it. This proposed amendment is confusing and over 1,000 words long. The ordinance does not clearly indicate which sections of the charter it is deleting or changing. Several other changes are included in the ordinance that are not part of the question that council voted on. If the question must be divided into 3 questions, as Chair Williams and Controller Griffith have stated, then council should have held 3 hearings and 3 separate votes. Their failure to publicly discuss each question separately robs the public of the opportunity to understand the scope and impact of each proposed change. If the Board of Elections splits this question into 3 questions, are they not unilaterally creating questions without the approval of the council? Some aspects of the ordinance go beyond the scope of the main question. Example, the reduction of the party affiliation requirement bears no relation to the change in the manner of appointment. Overall, as a resident of Kingston, I implore you to vote no to this amendment. Thank you for your time. And that's the last one. I think that's it for the public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Ms. Pissarro. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Schramm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, opposition, none heard. Meeting is adjourned at 7:28 PM. Thank you, everybody. And we'll just turn your microphones off. Thank you.
This is just. I need to have the.